right, Eagles Nation, welcome back into the channel and welcome in for our first game recap reaction of the season. Week 1 of the NFL season for the Philadelphia Eagles, at least, is in the books. And before we talk about anything, the most important thing, Philly starts off 1-0. At the end of the day, Week 1 football is always sloppy, crappy football. And that's just the reality of the NFL. I'm sure this won't be the last game that we see this week that is really weird. Not as weird as this game. This was one of the weirdest games of all time. Not a doubt in my mind. Ejection before an offensive snap, weather delay. It had everything. However, this is a precursor for some of the sloppier football we will see in week 1. But the bottom line is the Philadelphia Eagles are 1-0. They pick up the victory, and now they get an extra 3 days of rest before heading to Kansas City. The big takeaway that I had from this game is actually a positive one, and there are plenty of negatives, Eagles fans, and we're going to get to it. Despite having a win, there are plenty of negatives. However, I do want to give some flowers to our quarterback, Jalen Hurts, because I know in terms of box score, 152 passing yards, 62 rushing yards, and 2 rushing touchdowns isn't the greatest game in the world by any stretch. However, I will say this. Jalen Hurts looked absolutely elite last night, and he actually looked like the best version of Jalen Hurts that I can remember in regular season play. And let me break that down for you. Jalen Hurts, obviously, as Eagles fans, many of us have him in a top 10 quarterback discussion, many in a top 5. But Jalen Hurts did have some weaknesses in his game when it came to reading defenses. Jalen Hurts last night looked comfortable in the pocket, went through his progressions. A lot of times it was the check down to Dallas Goedert that was open, but that was open. And getting to a 2nd and 6, a 2nd and 4, a 2nd and 3 is a hell of a lot better than being in a 2nd and 10. And the ability to take what the defense gives you and play for the next down is a lesson that Josh Allen had to learn. It was a lesson that Lamar Jackson had to learn. And I believe it's a lesson that Jalen Hurts is learning. And I think it's important to note that Jalen Hurts is younger than those guys. Jalen Hurts is going into his year 27 of life. This is a lot of times when quarterbacks and athletes hit their prime, because physically the tools are still there, which we saw with Jalen Hurts last night in the rushing attack. His 2 rushing touchdowns were not tush pushes. Those were scramble drill, get up, make a play, get in the end zone. One of them, the first one being on 3rd down on an all-important drive to get some momentum back in favor of Philadelphia. And like I mentioned, physical tools are still there. The mental really starts to become clear to these guys. And yes, some of it winning a Super Bowl and some of it becoming close friends with Michael Jordan, but some of it's just experience, man. Our quarterback has been playing in the league for a minute now. He's been in the biggest of spots. He's composed. He's won at the highest level. And now mentally, he doesn't feel like he has to press. 19 of 23 for 152 passing yards, a 93.7 QBR, and a 94 passer rating. The 93.7 QBR is pretty sweet. But statistically, he doesn't jump off the page. But I thought Jalen Hurts played elite football last night. I did. I thought that he managed that game. And every time the Eagles needed him to make a play, he did it. The Jalen Carter ejection, which we'll talk about in just a second, that happens. Dallas comes out, dog walks the Eagles down the field, up 7-0. How do you respond? Jalen Hurts immediately leads a touchdown drive, a lengthy touchdown drive, in which he has multiple scrambles to pick up a 1st down and then score the touchdown. Did it almost quite literally all himself. Gets us back to even. Next drive for Dallas. Down the field. Penalty, DPI, and all of a sudden, they're in the end zone again. Jalen Hurts, next drive. What does he do? Repeat of the first drive. Leads the team down the field on a lengthy drive. Reaches for the pylon, gets in the end zone. So, you can't discredit how much Jalen Hurts meant to this team early on in the game. And then late in the game, in the second half, there were 3 points scored. The defensive adjustments at halftime and in the weather delay were real. Both defenses came out in that second half playing much better football. And Jalen Hurts was the only quarterback to lead his team to points. And Jalen Hurts closed the game on that third down scramble to get into victory formation. So the flowers for Jalen Hurts need to be there. As well as Saquon Barkley, again, counting stats wise, not the craziest of nights. 18 for 60 for a touchdown, 4 for 24 in the reception category, 84 total yards and a touchdown. The definition of consistent, man. Even on his bad nights, Saquon Barkley gets in the end zone and gets you 80 yards. Those two guys were the two leaders of the team last night. Those two guys stepped up and made countless plays. Those two guys are going to lead Philly wherever they go this season. Let's talk about some of the bads, because there were some bads. We'll start with Spitgate, Jalen Carter. It's twofold. Dak did spit at Jalen Carter first, and I've seen some people be dismissive of that because he spit at him on the ground, didn't land on him. At the end of the day, I think that it's on the referee who saw that to de-escalate the situation before Jalen Carter and Dak Prescott are in each other's faces. I'm not saying that I disagree with the flag on Jalen Carter for spitting on Dak Prescott. It's absolutely disgusting. And listen, nobody dislikes the Cowboys as much as me. But at the end of the day, you have to be a professional out there. You know that your team needs you out there. You can't be doing that BS. However, to see Jalen Carter get flagged and ejected because his spit landed on Dak, and to see no penalty on Dak because his spit missed Jalen Carter, was a little infuriating. And I'm hoping that because of this, we don't see a suspension, because this week is out and gone, but Jalen Carter is needed for next week at Kansas City. It was immature. It was stupid. It was hot-headed. And those are all the reasons that Jalen Carter fell to us in the draft. You take the good with the bad. We won a Super Bowl because of Jalen Carter. Sometimes this happens, I suppose. It's unacceptable, but it's not as surprising as it would be if somebody else on the team did it. The defense as a whole, there are some massive questions. I don't want to eat away too much at the defensive line because they started to get pressure in the second half. Vic started calling some more blitzes because the team just wasn't getting pressure with 4 without Jalen Carter out there consistently, and having Jordan Davis and Moro Ojomo not be able to rotate as much on the defensive line. Having Ty Robinson be inactive for this game, I thought it was a mistake when it happened, and it proved to be even further of a mistake. Byron Young did play some great football, though, but they needed more bodies on that defensive line, especially once Jalen Carter got ejected. Not something you could prepare for, but it's the reality of what happens. That is why their pass rush at certain points and their run defense wasn't great. Guys were tired. The Philly runs a rotational defensive line set, and Jalen Carter is the main cog in that. And, you know, without it, he almost cost the team a victory. It's very possible that if CeeDee Lamb catches that ball at the end of the game, Dallas wins 27-24, and we're all here singing a different tune. So to be clear there, I'm not there on that. Adoree Jackson, get him off the field, man. And listen, I get it. Vic likes to roll with the veteran players. We've seen it. We saw it last year with Maddox over DeJean, and I came up here on this very YouTube channel banging the table for Cooper DeJean, and I'm going to bang the table for Jacorian Bennett. I don't think Bennett's going to have the same impact that DeJean had, but even when Adoree Jackson had that almost concussion, I thought Bennett clearly played better football. He was stuck to CeeDee Lamb. There was BS DPI call on him. I thought that was clear hand shoving. There were some correct DPI calls in that game. Don't get me wrong. I thought that one was a bad one, but Bennett was just very clearly able to keep up with CeeDee Lamb better. We'll see how long it takes Fangio to realize that Adoree Jackson isn't it, and how long we could survive without Adoree Jackson being it. Because I promise you, if you send Adoree Jackson out there next week versus Mahomes, all Mahomes is going to do is get to that huddle. Where's number 8? There he is. Pink. Where's number 8? There he is. Pink. And that's going to be, it's going to be the game, man. It almost was the game tonight. CeeDee Lamb, 7 for 110 yards. About 6 for 100 of those came on Adoree Jackson. So, and I get it, it's CeeDee Lamb, but still, that is a massive hole. I thought the linebacker play was great. Zach Bond looked fantastic again, looked like an all-pro, looked like a top 3 linebacker in the sport. Jahad Campbell, I thought he played really well. I thought for a rookie, he looked great. I was happy to see Makuba out there some. Sidney Brown got hurt. Sidney Brown kind of always gets hurt, so, wish him well, but I was happy to see Makuba out there. I think he's better than Sidney Brown. You guys know this. The Eagles defense has some things to work on. Kevin Patullo, as the offensive coordinator, has some things to work on. I think we're going to talk about that more at length this weekend at some point, probably on Sunday. But A.J. Brown having 1 target in the 4th quarter is unacceptable in terms of just having a steady offense. That second half, when they couldn't move the ball, you got to scheme some things for A.J., a drag route, a screen, a slant, line him up in the slot, move him across the field, something where the offense isn't rolling. Get your best weapon the ball. Get your best receiving weapon the ball. They did that for Devonta Smith on a screen play. He was 3 for 16. I don't know why they didn't do that for A.J. Brown, truthfully, in the first half when they were dominating running the ball and Jalen was making play after play. It was one thing, but in the second half when you couldn't move the ball, that's when you call up 11's number and get him the ball. Patullo's young. Again, I liked the first half play calling from him. I didn't like the second half play calling from him, especially after the weather delay. Did that play a role in it? I don't know. But some things to watch. At the end of the day, again, Philly is 1-0. I loved what I saw from Jalen Hurts. I liked what I saw from Saquon Barkley. Zach Bond still looking really, really solid. The defense has pieces on it, but it's a young unit. It's going to take some time to figure out. I'm happy to leave week 1 1-0. Be sure to let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below. If you love the Philadelphia Eagles and you're not yet subscribed to this YouTube channel, I would suggest you highly consider doing so. I will catch you next time. Peace.